Howdy everybody and welcome to Nostalgia Goggles. I'm Cass, also known as Retro Gaming Nerd, and welcome to the 40th anniversary of Mario celebration thingy I'm doing. If you're wondering why I started with the howdy, it's because today we're going to be talking about Mario 2, or in Japan, it's called Mario USA.
He's at it again!
This is a Mario 2.
Nope.
Now, with that being said, Mario 2 is on this cartridge. I'm using this as the catch-all. It's gonna suck for editing, because having two Mario 2s, but here's the deal, right? There is a Famicom version of this game. There's an American version of this game. I don't have either. Once again, like the other one, just don't have it. I used to, but I don't. It was a pink cartridge. With that being said, is this game worth playing today? I remember back in the day, there was a little bit of an issue with this game. I remember people not liking it as much because it wasn't Mario. Does that really matter in the modern day? Well, let's find out. So as we all know, Super Mario 2 is a dream, and boy does it feel like it, because apparently all the characters, Mario, Luigi, Princess Peach, and Toad all had a collective dream, and within that same collective dream, instead of doing anything, more interesting, they decided to do what they normally do in the normal world, and that is take down a self-proclaimed ruler. I think. He wears a crown. They decided to take on Wart, and that's really the story of the game, right? The story is simple. It was all a dream, which was probably super cool for back in the day, but now it's more of a, shit, man. I don't know why that's my reaction. It just feels like it's like, I guess, right? I don't know. I don't know how to feel about this story. It's interesting that the second go-around for Mario was a dream. And I don't know how people felt about that, because that's probably like a cool reveal. And Nintendo did that back in the day a lot. Having cool reveals at that dead-ass end of the game, right? Specifically, the only one I'm really trying to talk about is Samus. But, like, either way, this one was probably... This is just interesting that it was a dream, and I feel like I could just write that off and say, it was all a dream! But yeah, the story is there. That's really it. It's an NES game. There's not much more to it. So with that being said, let's move on to the gameplay. So, the gameplay for Mario 2 is interesting because they literally foregone the iconic way to play Mario. In America, which is the one I'm talking about, Mario 2 was vastly different. In Japan, they got the Lost Levels, which was very similar, and I will definitely talk about it here. Give me time, though. The thing that made this one interesting is the fact that they changed up the gameplay so dramatically. Instead of jumping on enemies and crushing them, you now have to jump on enemies and throw. This is a jump and throw game. And it's way more than that too, because you can gain hearts now. Instead of just having to rely on power-ups, you have to rely on hearts. The superstars work differently. Everything works differently. And I feel like that was to its detriment. Back when I was starting YouTube, or started watching YouTube, I remember that being an issue for some people. Some people said the game was bad because it wasn't traditionally what Mario was known for, so they wrote it off as bad. Heck, even people were like, oh, it's different because it's Doki Doki Panic. While that is true, I think that it's not as bad as people used to say it is. I don't even think people think that this game is bad anymore. I think that that has passed. I think what's interesting is that I can kind of guess and see why Nintendo, especially for America, decided to change this game and decided to change it up. And I think it has everything to do with the console crash or the gaming crash of not too long ago, the one that people talk about. I think it's that way because one of the issues that was cited for that crash is because there was no quality control, no games were too samey, and that could be definitely a fear, right? That might be why in the USA they decided to make Mario 2 the way they did. Because it's not just Mario 2, there is multiple games like Castlevania 2 and Zelda 2 that decided to change up the gameplay dramatically. Heck, even Contra did it, because I feel like they were scared that people would look at this and go, oh, it's the same game. And I can see, especially for Mario, from the Lost Levels to this, I can see where that fear would definitely come from, right? And I have no clue, honestly, if the Lost Levels would have done well here, in all honesty. Like, I think it would have done good, but I think Mario 2 took the right decision in going to the way it did, because it made an iconic game, making iconic monsters, and that's more in the presentation. But all in all, I think The wild and crazy world that Mario 2 made is majorly iconic for the gameplay. With that being said, there is the Game Boy Advanced versions of these games that upped the ante majorly, which makes sense of time. I think that the Game Boy Advanced versions are a great way to play this game, specifically, because it is a little bit different of an experience. And I think that that's great. All in all, I think that the gameplay of Mario 2 is great, because it's not what you traditionally would think of Mario. And I think that that's kind of good too, because Mario does change so much, right? So all in all, I think that the gameplay of Mario 2 is genius. So with that being said, let's move on to presentation. It is common knowledge now that Super Mario Bros. 2 is a retooling of a game called Doki Doki Panic. But did you know it was originally made in collaboration with Fuji TV, the company that also made All Night Mario Bros. This explains a lot about the American Mario 2. It explains a lot about why the American Mario 2 looks the way it does. It's because of Doki Doki Panic that we have the difference in gameplay, alongside the different world, enemies, and how characters look and play. Without Doki Doki Panic, we probably wouldn't have had characters like Birdo and Shy Guy. And I think that this game has a unique and unforgettable aesthetic, especially since the Japanese Mario 2 was very samey and safe. Mario 2 altogether is a game that definitely is interesting, especially when it comes down to what it's given to us. It definitely does feel like Mario, but I feel like they also could have just released Doki Doki Panic in America. But I think it's better off that they did do Mario. It's interesting to see that with the presentation standpoint, because Mario makes it feel a lot more familiar and it makes it feel better in the presentation department. I think that this is one of the most interesting NES Mario games because it takes you in different places. And it does very odd things. Like, one of the things that comes to mind that's interesting is the ice level alongside the whales that shoot you up from their spouts. That's interesting. I think that this game does that multiple times with the mini bosses and everything else. It's interesting that Nintendo decided to go this way with Mario in America, and I think that it's better off that way. As I said before, I think that the Famicom version of Mario 2 was so samey that we kind of needed something like this. This game shot energy and also a lot of new sprite design into Mario. And I think if it wasn't for this game, we probably wouldn't have the understanding of how Mario sprite would be in the future. Mario 3 probably wouldn't be a thing, and I think that that is one of the best when it comes to the NES games in visual design. So I think that this is interesting. Yes, it is definitely a departure from what we already know, but this is the perfect time to do it. So when it gets right down to it, Mario 2 was released on more consoles than I honestly thought it would be. So let's start with initially was released on the NES. For the NES, it looks like you're about to pay $17 to $25, which is okay. I really don't like how the NES prices have gone up over the time, but that makes sense as time has gone on. These games are older. I remember back in the day when I was, getting into retro collecting, it was way cheaper. So it's kind of hard for me to say what a good price is. And I think that these are okay. They're just about $10 more than what I initially paid back in the day. So, so it's just hard for me to get over. But the NES prices are that, and I think that they're fine. With that being said, this game also was released in Japan as Mario USA, and that one will set you back $20 to $35. As I've said before, the thing about the prices for these games is that they are not bad, but it really comes down to more or less of the shipping that'll get you, because most of them are out of the country. There's a few that I've noticed that are here and it's $7 shipping. Don't do that. These things are lighter than air. I don't know why people put that high of shipping. If you want that much, just ask for that much, but in reality, getting these games off the internet, that's how much they'll cost you. The game also was available in Super Mario All-Stars, and it is $20 to $40, something that I'm going to be saying forever in this video. No, there's another way that this game is released because Nintendo hates me, and it is Super Mario Advanced. That is the Game Boy Advanced version of Mario 2. I don't know why they just didn't call it Mario 2 Advanced. I don't know why they didn't do it. You'll hear me talk about this later. Nintendo, I don't know why they did it. Trust me, it gets weirder as we go on. And last but not least, there's the NES Classic version, and also, believe it or not, the Famicom Classic. I honestly am surprised that it's on the Famicom Classic. This is also me just going off a list because I do not have the opportunity to get my hands on a Famicom Classic at the moment. I believe I had one, but at one point, but that's that comes down to my memory being weird. I had to get rid of a lot of stuff when we moved, and I think that was one of them. With that being said, Yes, it's very interesting that that is on the Famicom as well. I honestly thought that they would have chosen the original Mario 2, but I mean, I guess it makes sense. It's different. Who knows? With that being said, there's also NSO. Yada, yada, yada. These games are pretty accessible. I think that, once again, I can't understand or do not understand the pricing of these games. I do not know why the NES version is this high. I think it's just something I'm gonna have to get over. With that being said, let's move on to the goods and the bads. So when it gets right down to it, Mario 2 is, like, really fucking fun. I think that despite the fact that it isn't the traditional idea of Mario, I really like what we have here. I like the throwing mechanic. I like how the worlds work. I like how the hearts work in this game. I like so much about this game. Right? And at first I didn't. When I first played this game for the first time, I was very disappointed that it wasn't traditional Mario, but my god, I think that this was a good decision to go with Doki Doki Panic. I think without it, I don't think we would have had, like, mainstays for what the characters are, specifically Peach. Luigi already had in Mario 2 traditionally a higher jump and he was faster. In this game, this brought the flutter jump, which I think is just something that definitely was here first. I don't know, I feel like we could have probably lived without that, and, you know, it probably would have been implied because he does jump higher. I think Nintendo would have thought about that. But Peach's floating is something that's really cool. It's used in Smash, it's used in most modern games like 3D World and so on and so forth, so it's nice to see that. And I think without it, it wouldn't have been there. Also, Peach being playable is big, right? I think that that's awesome. Peach and Toad being playable characters is awesome, and it's something that still continues to this day, especially with Toad. A very similar Toad is playable in the new Super Mario Bros. Games, and I think that this game put a lot of the groundwork for multiplayer, weirdly enough, when this game wasn't. But it definitely made the multiplayer or multiple characters more useful. Birdo is beautiful. Shy Guys are super cool. I would love to see a Mario game come back to this world. I would love to see that. Heck, I'd like to see a Mario 2, if you will, like a sequel to it, because we've been gone from this for a long amount of time, and I think it'd be really cool to come back to this world. It's something that I think is cool. It's intriguing, and I think that that's what really matters. It's a game that definitely stands in existence, and it makes you be like, yeah, that's what it was. And I'm very happy that the American Mario 2 is what it is. You know, there was a time when I didn't, and I'm happy that it is. This is an exciting and fun game. With that being said, no game is perfect. I feel like the worst thing I could say about this game, and it's something that you could get over really quickly, is that it isn't traditional Mario, but due to the fact that in the modern day that we're in 2025 when this is recorded, there are so many traditional Mario games you can play that that's not even a valid excuse. It's one of those things of where I've heard people complain about it, but I think it was a very, very limited window of time that people had an issue with this. And even then, I don't even know if that's real. I just know some people that didn't like this game because it wasn't a traditional Mario game. And that's really the only thing that's to its detriment. But I don't think it matters in reality, because when you have played Mario 2 in comparison to this, I would much rather have this. There is nothing wrong with Mario 2 Japan, but I think that this was the better alternative. It did so much for Mario in so many different ways that I can't even say that as a bad. I'm just saying it because I feel like it is a valid point. I can see where people were expecting another form of traditional Mario, but I think even then that opinion doesn't matter because Mario 3 happened. So at the end of the day, I can't really see that much bad, because yes, it traditionally isn't Mario, right? It isn't traditionally what Mario was from the first game, but I don't think it matters. It made an interesting impact, and I can still see, if you disagree with me, that's fair, right? I think if you wanted a traditional Mario game, that is fair. And actually, you got one. It just didn't come until later, right? The thing that's funny is I don't know if what I'm saying is even a real problem. I just had some friends that I know did not like Mario 2 or Mario Advanced because it wasn't what they were expecting. And that's fair, right? Especially for Mario Advanced. That one's fair because that came out for the Game Boy Advanced, and that was a whole nother generation that was not aware of Mario 2. Hell, I wasn't aware of Mario 2, right? Finding out about Mario 2 existed, that came from the internet for me. So, you know. So at the end of the day, I don't really know what's bad about this game. I enjoy it a lot. It's super fun, and I think that I can't sit here telling you a bad. I'm sorry. With that being said, let's move on to the final thoughts. So, I know, is Mario USA worth playing today? Mario 2? Yeah, actually. I think it's very interesting as a game. I like it a lot. And it became one of those kind of go-to games after a while. Yeah, back in the day, it wasn't one that I liked too much, mainly because it was very different. But as I got older, I kind of enjoyed the differences. It's wild. So, with that being said, Yeah, it holds up. I don't know where I was going with that. When you do these mini, it kind of just warps your brain. So let's move on to Mario 3. Bye.